The dark night enveloped the streets, and I hid in the shadows, watching her every move. My beloved, the woman who promised to be mine, never left my heart alone. But today something was different. I noticed her secretly getting into a car and going somewhere far away from our home. Anxiety gripped me, and I decided to follow her to find out what she was hiding in her soul, and from me. This is the story about the drama of fate, the discovery of secrets, and the loss of innocence. Are you ready to discover the truth? Then hold on tight, because the journey into a world of intricate intrigue and passionate emotion is about to begin. Welcome to the story of my life. Hello, I am 36 years old and my wife is 38. We met when I was in my 3rd year and she was in her 5th. Since then, we have been together. After 3 years of relationship, we started living together, lived together for 3 more years and got married. 2 years later, my wife got pregnant and we had a daughter. That's how we lived. Yes, we had quarrels in everyday life, but there were never any quarrels. We always made up immediately or even in the process of quarreling. In general, a classic family. I went to work after college. Then I got another one and started climbing up the career ladder. In the end, I got a 4-room apartment. We made a decent renovation there and moved in. By the way, my wife also went to work after maternity leave and everything worked out well for her. She got a good job, started earning decent money, and the sum added up to my salary was pretty decent. In general, over time, we got everything. We also bought an apartment for our daughter, so to speak, to grow up. We bought expensive cars and, as they say, a house with a full house. I loved my wife, never cheated on her, and I don't drink. Well, in the sense that I don't drink. I can drink on occasion, but I don't get drunk or have a glass of wine at dinner. Until recently, I smoked. We always planned vacations together. I have developed hobbies such as diving and mountain skiing. My wife refused to go scuba diving on the grounds that she was afraid, but she did take up skiing. That's how we generally lived, planning vacations, earning money, and spending it at her pleasure. My wife's job was connected to foreign business. She had a lot of colleagues from abroad to negotiate and so on. And then a little over a year ago, I began to notice that when these colleagues fly in, my wife stays much longer than she did years before. But I didn't pay much attention to it, although it did catch his attention. In the evening before going to bed, my wife started to receive some messages on Telegram or WhatsApp, and I noticed one peculiarity. When the colleagues flew in from abroad, the messages did not come in the evenings. A couple of times, when she fell asleep, I checked my phone, but all the messages were cleaned up. For example, I definitely spotted the phone beeping at 11:10 p.m. after she fell asleep. I check her phone and see no messages after 7 p.m., not in any of the chats. And then came the moment when the worm of suspicion finally settled in me. When once she came in late again, at 10 p.m., and I foolishly joked. So she saw her lover off. Such frightened eyes I had never seen her. But she, seeing that I was smiling, immediately smiled too, and looked away, saying that I was a fool. On top of everything else, she also sometimes flew abroad to colleagues on a return visit. And then one day, when the worm has completely nibbled me, I could not stand it and put the spy program on her phone. Allowing literally 30 minutes in the office, a recording appears. I listen and realize that she is in the room with a man, speaking in English, but I understand everything. They are discussing some mundane points in life, chuckling, and I am clearly beginning to realize that she and he are the only ones in the room. Then I hear the glasses clinking, her laughter. At this point, my pulse is already racing. I send a command to record another 20 minutes and take a photo. I get a black square. I realize that the phone is lying with the camera face down, so I send the command to take a photo with the front camera. I get a photo, and I finally understand that the phone is in the room on the nightstand, as I can see the sconces and part of the bed headband. 15 minutes later, another recording arrives for me. My hands are shaking and I turn on the playback. More chatter, her laughter, his. Basically, I was already in some kind of incomprehensible state at the time. It all seemed unreal to me. My world was crumbling before my eyes. I poured myself a glass and sent the team off to record 4 hours, after which I just gorged myself like a pig. Thursday morning. My daughter woke me up. She had to go to school. I told her she didn't have to go today. Wrote to work that I was taking a couple of days off until Monday, and my wife was flying in on Sunday. And I sat down to listen to the tape for 4 hours. But 40 minutes was enough for me, because that's where I heard the moans of the woman I had lived with for more than 13 years. And I know exactly what those moans are. At that moment, it was as if I had been stabbed to death. I think I was in so much pain that I even felt physical pain. I ran to the bathroom, where I threw up. I don't even know which more. From the hangover or the situation. I stood under an icy shower for 20 minutes, after which I took the child to my parents and told them I would explain everything later. Went back in. She called at lunchtime and asked, not fake, "How are you, love?" I stood silently, like an idiot, sent up the phone to the kitchen, and couldn't get a sound out of myself. After she asked again a second time, I pulled myself together and answered that everything was fine, citing a bad connection. I told her I was sick and would stay home for a couple of days, and took my daughter to her grandmother's house. That day was the hardest for me. I saw hell. I couldn't find myself. I didn't know where the kids were going, what to do at all. My head was buzzing so much that I couldn't hear my own thoughts. I sat on the couch and roared like a girl. Then came the rage, then the apathy. But the more I let my emotions out, the easier it got. I could feel all the things I'd grown up with all those years toward her dying inside me. By the end of the day, I was almost emotionally dead, and in the evening I went back into my personal office and started sending commands to my phone. Pictures were coming to me, then from my bag, then from my desk. Tapes were coming in that I could hear that she was somewhere in the restaurant. There were a lot of them. That is, apparently, really with her colleagues. And in the evening, the most interesting thing began. Again the phone on the nightstand. Again his and her voices, only now the fuss without moaning. And then I couldn't stand it and called. She picked up the phone on about the 4th ring, and I could hear her breathing. I asked what actually happened. Why were you breathing like that? The answer. The elevator at the hotel broke down, and I walked up the stairs to my room. I chatted with her for literally minutes. It was unbearably hard to stay calm and not shake my voice. I told her that it was okay and that I was going to bed. I wished her a good night's sleep and hung up. I sent a command to take a quick series of photos with the front camera. This is where she made the mistake of ending the conversation with me. She put the phone not on the nightstand, but on the bed next to me. The front camera began to send a slightly crooked, but generally clear photo of half of her body, with a bottom-up view of her sitting naked in a riding position on another body, tucked in her head. And then came the sound recording, where you can hear all the same familiar sounds of a wife to any husband. These were my last drops. I kept those recordings and materials, though for some reason she was already a complete stranger at this point. In the end, I didn't try to figure anything else out until Sunday, since everything was already clear. I started to think, what should I do next? Divorce? Sandal? What about giving? She's only 9. Sunday, close to late afternoon, she came home and started kissing. I pushed her away, reminded her that I was sick. I wanted to tell her everything. I went to sleep in my study on the sofa. In the morning, I got up before her and left for work. I couldn't be around her. I sat like a zombie at work all day. Then I got up and rolled all these notes and pictures onto a thumb drive. I also added my video message, which I went and recorded in the meeting room at work. The message included questions. Why? What were you thinking? Have I been such a shitty husband all these years that you could flush me down the toilet like that? Well, all in all, the classic snotty stuff in these situations. Then I went to my boss and told him I was taking a week off. He called his wife and said he was leaving for a business trip today for one day. But my daughter asked not to take her grandmother because I have a surprise for her. In the evening I will come, but quickly pack a bag. I arrived, she was already packing for me and was just being nice and innocent. But I, seeing this hypocrisy, was just furious. I grabbed my bag, threw the flash drive on the nightstand in the bedroom, and secretly took a cab to the second apartment. The one for my daughter, it was empty. From there, I called a friend and asked if he wanted to go away for a few days, somewhere abroad. He agreed. We booked our tickets in the evening and flew to Munich early in the morning. There I told him everything. We drank, walked around, and of course with women. Honestly, I no longer felt like I owed anything to my wife. I didn't answer my wife's calls, only wrote that there was a flash drive on the nightstand in the bedroom and I wanted her to put it in the laptop. After about half an hour, my phone turned red with calls and messages, but I didn't even want to read anything. I just didn't care anymore. I turned it off. We ended up walking around Munich for 3 more days. On Saturday, I flew home. Upon arrival, I turned on my cell phone and it weighed for about 5 minutes, trying to digest the number of messages she had sent me. I didn't read them so I wouldn't suddenly wind myself up before entering the apartment. When I entered the apartment, there was silence. I silently put it in my bag, got undressed, and got ready to go wash my hands. As she came out of the bedroom, God, I had never seen her so down and disheveled. There was no face on her. She threw herself on her knees and started to explain something to me, unintelligible, through snot and tears. I made a stone face and asked her not to start a circus, and then asked her in a calm tone what we were going to do. She begged me to forgive her. She started crying and sobbing again, saying that she was playing around, that she didn't understand when we were going through this. She started calling herself a scumbag, and so on and so forth. But you know, I caught myself thinking that I no longer felt pity or rage for her. She was yelling, screaming that she loved and had always loved only me, and all of this only happened because she got all worked up, and in all the days that I was gone realized that she had broken our crystal castle with her own hands. But as they say, revenge is a dish to be served cold. I said that now we are not husband and wife. Now we are just mom and dad to our daughter, and we will pretend that we are fine. But I'm going to live my life, and you can live yours. You're not the one for me anymore. You're just my Parker for raising the kids. Maybe someday I'll change my mind, but right now, I just get groggy just at the thought of being intimate with her. By the way, I told her where I was and what I was doing, and she said she understood and was only willing to tolerate as long as it took. Well, no one pulled her tongue. As a result, we now live in one apartment, though honestly, I bought another one for myself and registered it in my father's name, so there would be no claims in case of division of property. I sleep almost constantly in the study, although sometimes, for the sight of his daughter, go to sleep in the bedroom. My wife made a few attempts to hug me when I was lying in the same bed with her, but I firmly nipped them in the bud. We hadn't been intimate for 6 months. She hasn't said anything to her parents, only my father knows. It was agreed that once a year, we would go on like a family vacation, for a week, but now it would be separate beds. I get to hang out with friends all the time, and I bought myself a motorcycle again, although I sold it for real to my wife when I still respected her opinion. I've already gone scuba diving in the summer and in the mountains with friends in December. I've made new acquaintances among them. There are some beautiful women too. I quit smoking. I joined a gym and lost a whole 10 kilos. I sometimes wonder when she'll come over and say she's had enough and leave or like file for divorce, but she doesn't. I catch her looking at me all the time, but I honestly don't care anymore. Even though I can see that she's trying, I'm killed by her pain. Recently, I defiantly put a stack of condoms on the desk in my office to see her reaction. She came in to say something, and when she saw them on the desk, she took a bullet out of the office. probably crying, I didn't catch up. She still goes to work, but she really doesn't stay late anymore. Although honestly, I do not follow practically. Somehow she came up and tried to explain to me that she had broken off all relations with that man except business ones. And kind of like for work, she still has to communicate with him and letters or negotiations. But she nagged that she doesn't even go near him now. The freak, by the way, has a family too. To which I said that her relationship with her sexual partners is none of my business, and she's free to do what she wants. I myself now sometimes come home at midnight or leave when my daughter goes to bed. Nothing has changed in the household routine. I still buy groceries, cook. I love and know how to do. We had Horka on a housekeeper coming in. I still pay the rent. Where she spends her money and whether she spends her money, I don't care. What kind of loving communication we have with each other is only for the daughter. Or her parents, if they come. Although I think if I told my mother-in-law, she would probably strangle her right in front of me. I have a great relationship with my mother-in-law. She is an intelligent woman and strictly honors family values. That's probably another reason why my wife doesn't want to leave. Apparently, she's afraid of her mother. Because mom will definitely ask what the hell is going on. And I'm not gonna lie. The only thing is, I'm sending her personal requests now. Motivated by the fact that I should have picked a lover from the same country and city, and then she would have an assistant, not a 5-hour flight away. Anyway, I bitch at her as much as I can. And I love it so much. Yes, she may be a monster now too. But it's a monster she made herself. For 6 months, traveling on business trips, or here in the city to be with other men. Without a thought for her daughter or her husband. No comment. Every time, I feel like my armor is cracking. I remember the day I learned everything. What I experienced then. And I let go. I become granite again. So that's how I live my life now. My daughter is fine. We are great parents to her. I still do my hands off her in the evenings. Mutual friends don't know anything. Maybe when I get tired of testing her or realize I've had enough, I'll turn off bastard mode and sit down to talk to her. Well, not now. Not now. And now on to the second story. My heart fell into an abyss when my eyes saw them together. The man I thought was my best friend and my wife, my faithful soulmate, were embraced by passion and betrayal. I could not have imagined that such an amazing story of fate drama was happening to me. Every movement, every smile, every touch between them tore my soul to pieces. A mixture of emotions, from anger to despair, from love to hatred, enveloped me, and I realized that nothing would be the same. But I was determined to get to the bottom of this tangled story, to uncover the truth and reclaim the piece of happiness that had been stolen. Are you ready to dive into the maelstrom of intrigue and emotional turmoil? Then fasten your seatbelts, because now begins the journey into a world of incredible plots and unexpected twists of fate. Let's begin. The story is called simply, The Wife. Michael and I were just acquaintances, not friends or even comrades. We met by chance. I helped him out once. Yes, it happens. His car broke down in the suburbs, and, as luck would have it, his phone ran out of juice. He desperately voted for help, but no one stopped. I was the only one who stopped. We hooked up his car on a so-called tie, and I dragged his car all the way home. After that, Michael took my phone number and promised to thank me by all means. And from the bottom of his heart, he said, he did not cheat, did as I promised. He called me a week later and invited me to a small but cozy restaurant. As it turned out later, this restaurant belonged to him. We had a very good time. We drank expensive cognac, and the food was exquisite. Long talked about life, and here, having learned that I have pair of the auto repair shops, Michael has declared that itself and will be repaired at me, and familiar to the friends too will recommend. In general, and so it began. I met with him occasionally. He came by occasionally for diagnostics or preventive maintenance. One day, Michael called me and invited me to his birthday. Naturally, the birthday was celebrated in his restaurant. I decided to go. Fortunately, my wife was away on a week-long business trip. Oh, those business trips. She never had such a chance before, and then 2 years ago promoted her at work. That's why the poor guy had to travel. And the most frustrating thing was that it was impossible to plan anything. Business trips were spontaneous. Sometimes I was still fine in the morning, but at lunchtime my wife called and said that either tonight or tomorrow morning she was leaving. Although there was an advantage to these business trips, after them, the relationship with my wife came alive in sex. The relationship was already tenderly loving, but after the business trips, there was some trepidation. We just wanted to hold hands and whisper words of love and tenderness to each other. And of course, lots of other lovey-dovey nonsense. The only annoying thing was that business trips became either more frequent or longer. If she used to go every 6 weeks or 2 months, now she could go twice a month or 2 weeks at once. So, back to the story. On the day of the party, Michael said he was going to introduce me to his woman. He said she was the most beautiful woman he had ever met, but the trouble was, she was married. Her husband was a freak, a total failure as a man, and they hadn't slept together for a long time. He drinks, and once even tried to raise his hand against her, the scoundrel of hell. They have no children because the man is terminally ill, but she is still hesitant to leave him. She says she feels sorry for him. But Michael has decided that he will insist because they love each other, especially since his wife promised to give Michael a son. I also joked that it was a coincidence that my wife's name was Svetlana too. Svetlana came 40 minutes later after the start of the celebration. When she came in, my heart sank in my heels. And literally, Michael's favorite woman, as you may have already guessed, was my favorite wife. A beautiful yellow dress, her favorite color by the way. It sat on her lovely figure magnificently. Not flashy makeup, stiletto shoes. She was beautiful, truly beautiful. Apparently, she decided to go out with her lover for the first time, because Michael immediately began introducing her to his best friends and colleagues in the restaurant business. I, on the other hand, stealthily went to the bathroom. The bitterness and resentment burned me from the inside. And what she had said about me to her lover, yes. Especially since we have 2 children, a boy and a girl. I couldn't get that out of my head at all. I probably managed to avoid seeing the birthday boy and his chosen one for an hour. I watched my wife having fun, accepting compliments from other men, and wooing Michael. And then I stood up at the table and proclaimed a toast. Something like a toast to the host and hostess of the party. I saw my wife first blush and then turn dramatically pale. Jumping up from the table, she ran out of the restaurant with all the speed her shoes would allow. Michael rushed after her. What happened next, I don't know. I left the restaurant through the kitchen and the back room. I don't know why I decided to hide. Whatever. I got home, got a bottle of Finnish vodka, sat down in the kitchen and waited. My wife arrived 2 hours later. There was no makeup on, and she was a father on a business trip. A conversation with her never came. Neither that day nor the next. My wife followed me around like she was tied up, crying and repeating sorry, sorry, sorry. I had to move out of the house because it was unbearable. Not seeing my wife, not hearing her cries, and this sorry, sorry, sorry. She called all the time. I had to disconnect the phone first and then change the number. I filed for divorce, notifying my wife through my mother-in-law. The judge, she cried and refused to divorce. I willingly divided everything in half, and the business and the apartment and the acquired property too. Of course, our humane court, I left the children to my wife. She does not prevent me from seeing them. Why did she do that? Honestly, I don't know, and I don't want to know. It's been over a year, and my wife is already an ex-wife. How I still can't get used to it. Still trying to talk to me like she used to. As soon as one of our mutual acquaintances tries to start a conversation about her, I politely ask them to change the subject. The only thing I care about from the old relationship is the children. In law, the death penalty awaits traitors and traitors to the motherland. Cheating in a relationship has no consequences for the cheating party. It is the cheater and the children who suffer. Children suffer the most. It's not their fault that one parent wanted something for themselves personally. I think this also applies to personal space in a relationship, which nobody knows where it came from, and nobody knows who invented it for what. Sincerely, Stanislav Olin. Here we come to the end of this story, friends. I have read it verbatim, changing almost nothing. Except, perhaps, for the tiniest changes. What do you think of it? Share, please, because I liked it and the ending is positive, not like the ones you and I are used to hearing in something like this. Please write your opinion in the comments, and also like and subscribe to the channel if you liked it and want me to continue. This is a sign to me that it's not worth stopping. See you soon, friends.